Some 24 years after the events of WCW Super Brawl 6, at which Brian Pillman gleefully removed the first brick in the dam of on-screen kayfabe, we're not exactly swimming in an ocean of groundbreaking change. In fact, the mainstream product in the US is mostly a faithful interpretation of what always constituted professional wrestling. Worked shoot angles are aberrations mostly engulfed in and thus ruined by a certain irony. As soon as they tell you it's real, it becomes harder to believe. Go figure. The old guard in meltdown over Pillman's transgression and the curtain call had little to fear in the end. No fan felt betrayed at the revelation of an open secret, nor was this new storytelling form sustainable. There is a further irony, of course, in that those most protective of wrestling's sanctity are also those quickest to erode it. The people largely still seek babyfaces and heels at war with stakes. Hence why that is still sold as wrestling's flagship product. The talent mostly operates within kayfabe on screen as a result, and it is very much hit and miss as to whether or not transgressing upon it is actually good. I'm Gareth from What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 wrestlers who didn't care about kayfabe. Number 10. Kenny Omega. The existence of parody does not ruin that which is parodied. It is a stupid misconception regurgitated by idiots because Mr. Cornette takes wrestling a bit too seriously. Kenny Omega wrestled a 9-year-old girl because it sparked the boundless creativity within him. And the match is a genuine triumph. A brilliantly funny blend of unconscionable cruelty and, if you allow yourself to get on its wavelength, halfway convincing comeuppance. He didn't harm anybody's career, nor undermine his peers in a promotion with stricter rules and a more traditional audience. A man put on a comedy show for God's sake, and somebody of influence campaigned for him to lose his job because he didn't agree with the content. Apply that to stand-up and a lot of fans would whinge snowflake at the critic quicker than it would melt. Number 9. Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey doesn't give a damn about kayfabe. Or her reputation. In character, that is. This character is informed by her very real existence as an important mixed martial artist. And when she eventually did transition to the world of professional wrestling, she did so as a fan thrilled to be a part of it. So much so that she turned up every week to WWE Raw. The show, incidentally, that people rip to shreds with an identical frequency, thus ensuring that its stars are absolutely screwed either way. It is perhaps with that shrugging nihilism Ronda Rousey took the nuclear option by informing her heel turn with what appeared to be a real falling out with wrestling itself, or at least its fandom at Survivor Series 2018. After one of the most brutal WWE women's matches ever, the fans jeered her mercilessly, after which she took to calling wrestling fake, in a bid to convince you that she might shoot on Rebecca Quinn, or more realistically, get Becky Lynch over as the wrestler who finally took down the invincible UFC killer. Ronda Rousey, the character, thinks you're dumb for liking fake wrestling, but given how awesome she was and how quickly some were to turn on her, if the person actually does too, then fair enough. Number 8. Triple H. The thing some people tend not to like about Triple H is that he likes to have his cake and pedigree it too. He's a staunch Harley race acolyte, shaped in ring style and psychology by sacred traditions. But put a microphone in his hand and a promising mid-card act across the ring from him, and he will ruthlessly expose the fiction of it all to get himself over. Kofi Kingston used to have a Jamaican accent, but he wouldn't have dared to point that out because, you see, only Triple H may break kayfabe. In 2006, John Cena happened to not be a very good pro wrestler, apparently, but he must have been, fans thought, since he was the WWE champion. But, you see, Triple H was referring to Cena's perception within in-the-know circles to babyface himself as the heel. Yep, still doesn't make sense. By the damn good standards of the 2000s, WrestleMania 22 fell flat on its ass. So, stellar work, Paul. Number 7. Shawn Michaels. Triple H's D-Generation X cohort Shawn Michaels was also, as we say in this part of the world, a little prick. The walls came tumbling down when Brian Pillman used a meta-narrative to drive his price up and bring an end to the reign of the 80s muscle men, but Shawn blurred the lines for the less noble pursuit of being a total wanker to Bret Hart. Michaels throughout 1997 was a prize prick, showing open disdain for his peer and the principles he held so dearly. He wasn't exactly helpful helpful in the ring too, crapping on the European title in an intentionally fake match with Triple H that acutely exposed the extent to which the pro wrestler cooperates with his dance partner, not combat opponent. Everybody knew this didn't kill the business, but it was an insult to the colleagues who had to follow. 1997 WWF was not PWG. They had to feel like total idiots performing their craft after that. But Michaels wouldn't have. He was too damn incredible at it. Echoes of this wildly exaggerated "this thing you like is fake, you dumb marks" genre were seen in his infamous SummerSlam 2005 performance too. Number 6. Joey Janela. Joey Janela came up in an era in which there was no ground left to break. Just a lot of pieces to reassemble however he wished. With no restrictions to limit his creativity, he used a world of possibility to create even more of them, approaching the industry with the flair of a maverick. After almost losing the use of his hand in one of the most demented deathmatch bumps ever, Janela pivoted towards the avant-garde to prolong his career, getting his first taste of the intoxicating heat/acclaim cocktail that would get him over as a renegade. To viral buzz, he wrestled an invisible man, showing a strong grasp of craft behind the initial visual gag. His transgressive approach, not that there is anything to transgress upon anymore, predictably drew the ire of the old guard. Janela responded by ridiculing the idea of using a tennis racket in a hardcore match, an insult all the funnier and cleverer for how contrived it was. Number 5. Kevin Nash. Kevin Nash stopped giving a toss when WCW business declined, which it did in no small part through his booking. But he was so funny with it that his antics have developed a certain charm in retrospect. The second that man erupts into his Cheshire Cat grin at the start of That Thunder, my god, you feel like ruffling his hair and forgiving him for the last 20 years of US mainstream rot. He openly admits to being a horrible booker the very first minute fans are introduced to the broadcast, helpfully revealing it to be both fake and terrible. He documents Goldberg's initial struggle to locate the hard camera before patronizing him with a hugely enthusiastic "yeah" when he finally manages. Goldberg also makes an appearance later in the night, which Nash calls like a wildlife documentary narrator. It's the one time Goldberg's spear doesn't look great, because Nash, in a fabulous quasi-Attenborough accent, calls it a tackle. This was probably even more damaging than a guy who... Number 4. Orange Cassidy. Wrestles with his hands in his pockets. Orange Cassidy operates almost staunchly within kayfabe in AEW. He lazily throws apathetic calf grazes at his opponents. But that's because he can't be bothered. Nobody sells. That's his character. It makes little sense that such a character would want to be a professional athlete. But that's the gag. The humor, that which makes life tolerable and has been a part of wrestling in various forms for a century, is derived from how absurd that is situationally. It's also funny because the dude has like 1.7% body fat. He's shredded. The gift of Orange Cassidy is that he's less silly than pro wrestling itself, but the parody is affectionate and, given how superb he is, hard-earned. Number 3. Mick Foley. Mick Foley wasn't married to the concept of kayfabe, and the irony is that a performer with no regard for the code better advanced the industry than so many who do. A superb performer in a field most were too selfish to excel in, Foley was a genius at getting his peers over. Foley openly presented the idea that professional wrestling was a larger-than-life spectacle populated by characters, not people, and used its scripted platform to express the different recesses of his personality. He explored his run in the WWF not as sport, but as drama therapy for a damaged and dangerous man, and it doubled as a tremendous means of refusing to allow himself to grow stale under the punishing grind of episodic television. He wasn't beyond abusing kayfabe explicitly though, and in the WWF he famously claimed that he wouldn't sell the abortion that was the people's elbow. Mick Foley thrived on enduring real pain to set his matches apart as spectacles, and when this awful toil was not recognized by a shrugging mainstream, he shrugged at their traditions. Number 2. John Cena. John Cena ritually broke kayfabe to bury his opponents as a means of building his upcoming pay-per-view match with them. Genius. It was also an altogether more charmless continuation of The Rock's patter, in which, under Vince Russo's non-traditional creative direction, he favored delivered slick and witty trash talk over the traditional three-point wrestling promo. Cena also wasn't fond of the put your opponent over, explain your hatred of them, tell the people the date on which you're going to kick their ass deal, and instead treated promos like a battle rap even when he had stopped rhyming. This obviously worked to a not insignificant extent, but that there were so few competing with him for that spot tells its own story, one which Cena on the mic held creative control over. Cena exposed Alberto Del Rio's gimmick as a sham in 2011, which it was, because it's wrestling. But you don't say that, because it's wrestling! With Bray Wyatt, he hurled fat jokes at the guy we were meant to be afraid of, and this ruined the man's aura. He told Roman Reigns that he'd have to learn how to cut a promo, for crying out loud. Perhaps best to do so from another teacher. Number 1. Minoru Suzuki. The best thing about the Minoru Suzuki vs Mecha Mummy match is that it exists, and its existence is the perfect counter-argument to the knackers who claim that comedy wrestling is the preserve of those without the talent to have made it in pro wrestling when it was a real man's world. Minoru Suzuki would tear every 80s territorial babyface who very theatrically played blind with the Crimson Mask limb from limb. He is also an incredible wrestler and performer, an elite talent at 51 years old who is so legitimate and expressive that he can make a 10-minute heel hook entertaining. And yet, he worked a comedy match with a robot mummy because it was never going to do a damn thing to his aura. He will absolutely kill you, damn it! The other best thing about Minoru Suzuki vs Mecha Mummy is that Suzuki doesn't betray his character nor patronize the form. It's a very elegant joke. He ambles from one end of the ring to the other, playing along before ensnaring Mecha Mummy into a submission hold. Mummy is helpless, but the outfit, while stupid, is very well thought out, and he is able to temporarily blind Suzuki with the dust he coated it with. Suzuki then short-circuits the Mummy with a bottle of water because he is also a machine, in what is a marvelous, inexplicable twist. Who needs kayfabe, right? And that's our list. Know of any other wrestlers who didn't care about kayfabe? Let us know all about them in the comment section below, and do not forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, be sure to head on over to whatculture.com and click on some more brilliant articles just like the one this video is based on. I have been Gareth from What Culture Wrestling. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm sure I'll see you very, very soon.